In this video, we will be discussing about this 2015 A-level MCQ paper. Question 1. Which of the following is a microeconomic statement? So we have discussed these questions, similar questions in previous papers. So anyway, I'll show you the note related to this difference between macroeconomics and microeconomics. Right, now look at this one. Here it says macroeconomics, the branch of economics that studies the behavior and the performance of the economy as a whole, is called macroeconomics. And on the other side, we get microeconomics. And how do we define microeconomics? That is the branch of economics that studies the behavior of individual economic variables. And also, I have presented some examples for variables that we are discussing under macroeconomics and examples for variables that we will be discussing under microeconomics. So if you look at these variables, you can understand if it is macroeconomics, it's always about the aggregates, the total output of the economy, the total income in the economy, the rate of inflation in that economy. For the whole economy, we just evaluate the inflation. For the whole economy, we evaluate the output, the employment level, economic growth, money supply. So these are the examples coming under macroeconomical variables. And on the other side, we have, see, demand, if not the supply or maybe the price of one good, the cost, production cost of one firm, one consumer's behavior. See that now these are the examples coming under microeconomic variables. So if you remember these things, now you can find the correct answer for this question. Listen to this. Which of the following is a microeconomic statement? If it's a microeconomic statement, it must be related to a single variable, right? The statement given must be referring to a single variable, not the aggregates. Right, now look at this first one. It says the price of rubber declined by 10% last year. See, out of the billions of goods and services available in this economy, this given statement talks about rubber, the price of one good. So definitely this has to be a microeconomic statement. So this has to be the answer. But we will go through the other options. The second one, unemployment of the labor force. See that now, in the whole economy, the unemployment of the labor force, it's macroeconomic statement. The real GDP, the aggregate product, increased by 7% last year. So once again, that is related to a macroeconomic variable. General price level, the inflation, again macroeconomic. Tax revenue of the government, the whole tax revenue of that entire economy, that is also connected with macroeconomic variables. So the answer for this question 1 has to be the first one. Right, now look at this second one. In the second question, we get the 3 key groups of decision makers in an economic system are. So these things are very clearly mentioned in the tutes. So if I show you the relevant part of the tute for this, look at this tute now. Here you get elements of an economic system. So under the elements of an economic system, we get these elements: decision-making units, decision coordinating mechanism, incentive system, rules and regulations, labor organizations, non-governmental organizations, and finally we get values, traditions, and culture. But somehow this question is related to the decision-making units in an economic system. So in the note, I have very clearly mentioned that these are the main decision-making units: households, government, and the business firm. So come back to the question. Right. 3 key groups of decision makers in an economy. Who are the 3 decision makers? On one side, we have households. Then we get business firms, but not the banks. Again, households, business firms, and the government. Yes, true. So that the answer for this question 2 is the second one. So no point of going through the other ones. So because you saw the theoretical part related to this. Right. Now look at this question 3. In question 3, it says the opportunity cost of a particular activity. So in the last paper also, in 2014 paper also, we discussed one question related to opportunity cost, right? So there you learn the meaning of opportunity cost. I explain you the definition. It's always the value of the second best alternative that you sacrifice. But if you just take that same approach to find the answer for this question, you will not be able to find that. The reason this question is somewhat related to this unit 4. And I hope that you remember the way we define economic cost of production. Economic cost of production in unit 4. So the economic cost of production is equal to the opportunity cost. That is equal to the opportunity cost. And if you remember, in this lesson, we calculate this opportunity cost, if not the economic cost of production, as a summation of direct cost and indirect cost. Direct cost and indirect cost. Right. So if you remember this equation, this simple equation, you will be able to find the answer easily. Right. Now we will go through all the provided options. The opportunity cost of a particular activity is the same for everyone pursuing that activity. No, that's totally wrong. The reason in our theory note, we have this topic, and there we talk about the characteristics of opportunity cost. And mainly we have 3 characteristics of opportunity cost. And what are these 3? The very first one says that this opportunity cost is a subjective concept. And what does that mean? It means that the opportunity cost of the same chosen activity may differ from one person to another. The opportunity cost of, let's say, 50 students being in a class can differ from one student to another. So that if you remember that very first quality related to opportunity cost, you will not select this as the answer. Right. The second one, it includes both monetary costs and foregone income. See that now. In this given statement, monetary cost refers to the direct cost, all the cash payments you make to the resources that you take from the outside environment. Right? So monetary cost is equal to the direct cost, and foregone income is anyway equals to indirect cost. Right? Then the total of these two we define as the opportunity cost in unit 4. And that opportunity cost is once again equal to the economic cost of production. Right? So that's why we chose this second option to be the answer of this question 3. And if you look at this third and the fourth options, they have divided this second option into 2 to develop those third and fourth options. It's always the total of direct and indirect costs we recognize as the opportunity cost. And the fifth one, this part is not visible for me, but something, the direct benefit of that activity. Anyway, that is not related. It's not about the direct benefit of the chosen activity. It's always the value of the second best alternative. I mean, in general, that's the general definition. But based on this unit 4, this is the definition given for opportunity cost. Right. Look at this question 4. Question 4 says, along a country's production possibilities frontier, on the PPC simply, right? On the PPC of a given country, right? We'll read the given options. The first one says, the level of technology is changing. No, this is one of the assumptions we make when drawing this PPC. We assume that technology to remain constant. Right. The second one, along a country's PPC, more of one good can be produced without giving up producing some other good. See, imagine that this economy is producing at this point A, right? So on this axis, we have the good X, and on the other axis, we have the good Y. So just imagine that you are moving from point A to point B, and as a result, what happens? You can increase the production of good X. But on the other hand, what happens to the production of good Y? You have to sacrifice that. You reduce the production of Y in order to increase the production of X. So this reduction of good Y we recognize as the opportunity cost of increasing the good X by this amount, right? So this statement is false then. If you are operating, if the economy is operating at a point on the PPC, that economy cannot produce without giving up producing the other good, right? That economy cannot increase the production of one good without sacrificing the production of other good, right? So the statement is wrong. Look at the third one. Along a country's PPC, resources are not being fully utilized. No, there are two main reasons for that given economy to operate at a point on the PPC. And what are the two reasons? The first one is full employment. The other one is full production, right? Full employment and full production. So if the country has achieved both full employment and full production, we recognize that situation as productive efficiency. And when the economy has achieved productive efficiency, it always operates at a point on the PPC. But here it says that some of the resources are not employed, which is wrong, right? The fourth one, available resources are being fully utilized. Yes, that's true. On the PPC, definitely the resources are utilized fully. So this is the answer for this question 4, right? The fifth one, there is productive inefficiency in the economy. No, as I explained here, if that economy is operating at a point on the PPC, that economy has achieved productive efficiency. So this is also wrong, right? Fifth, the fifth question says, if resources were perfectly substitutable in all economic activities, which of the following would be true? So this is not the first time that we get this question. We got the same question in a previous past paper as well, right? Now you know that there are mainly three different shapes for PPCs, right? The first one is the straight line PPC. This one is the PPC which is concave to the origin, and here you get a PPC which is convex to the origin. And the main reason, one of the main reasons for having a straight line PPC is that the resources being perfectly substitutable. The resources being homogeneous, right? So that's one of the main reasons for having a straight line PPC in that given economy. And if resources are heterogeneous, then the PPC will be concave to the origin, and due to economies of scale, the PPC will be convex to the origin. So if you remember that simple thing, you can recognize the correct answer for this question. Now here it says, if resources were perfectly substitutable, the first one says output of all goods could be increased. See, now it doesn't matter whether you can increase the production of both goods or not. I mean, there's no such connection between this given scenario and the nature of the resources. Even if resources are heterogeneous, and if you are operating at a point inside the PPC, now this economy has the ability to increase the output of both goods simultaneously. So that can happen even if resources are heterogeneous. So this is irrelevant. The second one, The production possibilities curve would be a straight line, 100% true. And that's what we discussed. So the answer for this question 5 is the second one. Right, look at the other options. Specialization and mutually beneficial trade would be impossible. The same set of options we discussed in that previous paper as well. So there's no such connection between the nature of resources and being able to engage in mutually beneficial trade, right? So there's no such connection. And no country or individual would have a comparative advantage in any activity, no. If you remember these questions that we do under the topic international trade, in that lesson also we just take straight line PPCs, which means that the resources are perfectly substitutable. But still, we identify the country. This country has the comparative advantage for this given good, and the other country has the comparative advantage for the other good. But still, the resources are perfectly substitutable. එනිසා making a statement එක වැරදි. මොකද මෙතන කියන්නේ no country or individual would have a comparative advantage in any activity, which is false. The fifth one, scarcity of resources would be eliminated. No, scarcity is a common problem for any given economy, and that has nothing to do with the nature of resources, right? So that's why we select this second one to be the answer for this question 5. Right, now look at this one, question 6. The economy based on capitalism includes all the following characteristics except one, and we just need to find that one which is not a characteristic of capitalism. Right, the first one, a price system based on demand and supply. See that now, a price system, the prices of goods and the prices of factors of production get decided based on the demand and supply. And that system we recognize as the price mechanism. And price mechanism is one main quality we see in a capitalist market economic system. Right? It is one of the qualities. So this is not going to be the answer. මොකද අහන්නේ එහෙම නොවන එක තෝරගන්න කියලා. Right. The second one, a system of private property. See, private property ownership is the most significant characteristic in capitalism. The third one, self-interest among households and entrepreneurs. See, we say in capitalist economic system, if not in a market economic system, they are again not identical, right? They are not identical, but still, if it's a free market economic system or a capitalist economic system, incentives are totally based on self-interest. So that is also a characteristic of capitalism. Fourth one, freedom of enterprise and also freedom of choice. We have both in capitalism. But the fifth one, look at the fifth one, centralized planning. Centralized planning we see in socialist economic systems, not in capitalism, right? So this is the answer for the question because this is not a characteristic in capitalism, right? Then that's the answer for question 6. Come to this 7th question. The degree of government involvement in the economy is greater. See that now. We just discussed this. The degree of government involvement will be very high in command economic systems compared to any other economic system. Clear? So if you look at a market economic system, we say in a market economic system, the government involvement or the government intervention is very minimum. Right? That is very minimum. So from all these given options, here in command economic systems, the government involvement is very high. Right? So this is very easy question. I hope that you all have taken that, selected that answer. So yeah, now we can move to this 8th one. In the 8th question, it says, if the demand for milk powder increases whenever a person's income increases. So this is what has happened. We have this person and his income has gone up. His income has increased. And what has happened when the income of this person increases, the demand for milk, right? The demand for milk has also increased. Then this is also a very simple question. There's a positive relationship between income and the demand for the product. If so, we recognize such goods to be normal goods. But in a different question, if you get when the person's income increases, the demand for that given good decreases, then we know for sure that this product or the good has to be an inferior good. But for this question, since we see this positive relationship between this person's income and the demand for the given good, it's a normal good. Right. Ninth one. Look at the ninth one. It says, at a given time, when demand increases and supply decreases in a competitive market for a normal good. Okay, so if it's a normal good, no problem. We can just draw the diagrams and see what will happen. So imagine that this is the initial diagram. So on this side, we get the quantity. On this side, we get the price of the good. So this is the initial demand curve. So the initial demand curve. And this is the initial supply curve. Right. So I'm going to copy this. Okay. Now, what's going to happen in this economy? The demand increases and the supply decreases. Okay. Demand increases. So this is the increase in demand. And the supply decreases so that the supply curve gets shifted to the left side. So based on the initial demand and supply, we recognize this to be the equilibrium price and this to be the equilibrium quantity. But what happens when the demand increases and supply decreases? In that second situation, we all can understand based on the blue color lines, if you recognize the equilibrium, now the equilibrium price has increased and also the equilibrium quantity has increased. So you may, by looking at this graph, you may select the second one to be the answer, right? You may select the second one to be the answer. But what if this happens? In this given graph, as you all see, the increase in demand is very much higher than the decrease in supply. But what if I draw the opposite? What if I say this is the equilibrium price and the quantity based on the initial demand and supply? And what if I say that demand increases slightly, now this is D2, but the supply decreases heavily. Supply decreases heavily. Now this is our second supply. So based on the blue color lines, see what will happen now. See the price, market price increases like in the previous case, but still what happens to the equilibrium quantity, the market quantity, that decreases. එනිසා මේ එකක් බලලා ආන්සර් එක ගන්න යන්න එපා. දැන් මේක මේ පළවෙනි පාර නෙමෙයි මෙහිම පාස් පේපර් එකක එන. ඒසෝට දැන් ප්‍රැක්ටිස් එක තියෙන්න ඕන. මේක එක එක විදි වලට වෙනස් කරලා ඇඳලා බලන්න ඕන. හරි. එහෙනම් in the first one what happened? The increase in demand is very much higher compared to the decrease in supply. And in the second one, increase in demand is insignificant compared to the decrease in supply. And I'm going to show you another situation where the ratio of increase in demand is equal to the ratio of decrease in supply, which means the gaps between the two demand curves and between the two supply curves, the gaps are identical, same. Now let's see what will happen. Based on the black color lines, you can recognize the initial market price to be P1 and the market quantity to be Q2. And based on the blue color lines, see, we can understand, we can recognize that the price has increased, but nothing has happened to the quantity, right? Nothing has happened to the quantity. So Q1 and Q2 both are same. එහෙනම් මෙහෙම තමයි මීට අමතර වෙන graph එකක් කියලා එකක් නෑ මෙතන අඳින්න. වෙන්න පුළුවන් ඔක්කොම scenarios අපි අඳලා තියෙනවා. එතකොට මේ scenarios තුනටම common කතන්දරය මොකද්ද? තුනේම අපිට පේන එක දෙයක් වෙනවා. What is that? The equilibrium price increases, but what happens to the equilibrium quantity? It depends. It depends on what? It depends on the ratio of change in demand and the ratio of change in supply. But one thing is certain, that is the price increases, but what happens to quantity, that is uncertain, right? So we just need to find that answer from the given options. Equilibrium price will fall, no, price will increase. Equilibrium price and quantity both will rise, no, quantity is uncertain. The third one, equilibrium quantity will rise, no, that is dependent on the ratio of change in the demand and supply. So that's wrong again. Fourth one, equilibrium price will fall. No, it will increase for sure. Equilibrium price will rise. Yes. Equilibrium quantity will either rise, like in our first graph, it will either rise, it will either fall like in the second one, or it will remain unchanged like in the third graph. So the answer for this question is the fifth one. Look at this 10th question now. It says, sugar and jaggery are considered as substitutes for each other in many consumption activities. Therefore, if the price of sugar rises, we would expect, okay, so we have sugar price here, sugar price. And what happens to the sugar price? Sugar price increases. And as the immediate result, what we can experience in the market, the quantity demanded of sugar will decrease. As the immediate effect, right? We see the quantity demanded of sugar to decrease. And why is that? If you think about that, why is that? Because if these are the two substitutes that we are considering, when the price of sugar increases, we say the quantity demanded of sugar decreases. But why is that? Because consumers who were consuming sugar are now moving from sugar to jaggery, right? They are moving from sugar to jaggery. And what happens to jaggery then? You have the demand in this way. We have the demand for jaggery in this way. Let's say that this is the market supply for jaggery. And when consumers are moving from sugar to jaggery, the number of consumers who are consuming jaggery will increase. And as a result, the demand curve, as the demand increases, right, due to the increase in the number of consumers, demand curve get increased to or get shifted to the right side, because we experience an increase in demand. Hari. එහෙනම් ඔක තමයි කතන්දරේ. So if you know this, you can find the correct answer for this question, right? So we'll read. We would expect the demand for jaggery to increase. Yes, the jaggery demand will increase. The second one, the jaggery demand decrease. No, that's wrong. The quantity demanded of jaggery to decrease. See that now. Nothing will happen to quantity demanded of jaggery. The reason, as you learn in unit 2, in the very first part of the lesson, only the price change of the considered good will change the quantity demanded of that good, right? And if anything else or any other determinant of demand changes, I mean, other than the price, if something else changes, then nothing happens to the quantity demanded that will directly influence to the whole demand, that will directly influence to the whole demand curve. So in this case also, we are just evaluating the impact on jaggery when the price of a substitute changes. So it will not influence on the quantity demanded of jaggery, but the demand for jaggery. But as I mentioned earlier, when the sugar price increases, the sugar quantity demanded will decrease. This is the price of the considered good, and here we consider the quantity demanded of the same good. On one side you take the price of sugar, and on the other side you consider jaggery. Then the demand will change, not the quantity demanded. Right. Then yes, the price of jaggery to decrease. No, when jaggery demand increases, the price of jaggery will increase. You can see that here. See, this is the initial market price for jaggery, and this is the new market price for jaggery. So that's easy. And the last one, the quantity demanded for jaggery to increase. No, nothing happens to the quantity demanded. Right. I mean, in this case, nothing happens to the quantity demanded. Right. Look at this 11th question. In the 11th question, it says, suppose that the price elasticity of demand for coconut is -1. When the price is just 60 per coconut, the quantity demanded is 500 coconuts. What will be the price of coconut when the quantity demanded is 600 coconuts? All right. So you may initially take it in this way. Now you are just writing the given data. So PED is -1, that is unitary elastic then. And also we get this information. What is that? When the price of coconut is just 60, the coconut demand, what is that? Yeah, the coconut demand is just 500 units. And when the price, what will be the price? Okay, we just need to find the price when the quantity demanded is 600. Okay, see that now? The quantity demanded changes as a result of change in the price of the considered good, as I explained earlier. All right, so you may try to find the answer using this equation. So what is the equation? PED equals, you write, we have, I mean, several equations, but for the time being, imagine that you are using this delta QD over delta P multiplied by P1, sorry, multiplied by P over QD. Right, so you put -1 here. Delta QD is the difference between 500 and 600. And then delta P, you just consider that to be delta P as it is. You just take it as it is. And then price is, let's say, 60. And the quantity demanded is 600. Quantity demanded is 600. And see what happens now. -1 equals 500 minus 600 is -600 over delta P multiplied by 60 over, my mistake, this has to be 500, right? When the price is 60, this is 500. So you may write 500 here. And by solving this, let's see what we get. So since this is a multiplication, we can just take both these fractions. I mean, we can combine the two fractions, right? We can take them to a single fraction. So it's -100 into 60, and the other one is 500 into delta P, which is equal to -1, right? Which is equal to -1. So then what will happen? You get -1 equals -60, and then another two zeros equals 500 into delta P. So you write delta P is equal to 6000 over, right, 6000 over 500. Then you get the answer delta P to be 12. If delta P is 12, see, you think the quantity has increased, which means then obviously the price should decrease, but by how much? How much should be the change in price? That should be 12. So you erase this and you replace that with this new value 48. Why? Because the change has to be 12, so that the price, the new price has to be then 48. Right? You may find this in the provided answer list, and fortunately, see that now, fortunately, it's not visible here. That's not given to us, fortunately. Right? Now just tell me, or just think, why do we say that this rupee amount, this new price 48 is wrong? Just think about that and tell me, why do we say that this 48 is wrong? Why it is not given to us as an option? See, as I mentioned earlier, in this given scenario, PED is -1, and if it is -1, it indicates a situation where we have a unitary elastic demand for this given product. And if the demand is unitary elastic, one main thing that should happen here is, in both situations, the consumer expenditure should remain constant. See, based on the initial data that we were given in the question, you can find the consumer expenditure to be how much? 30,000. But in the second situation, when you multiply 48 by 600, I'm 100% sure that you don't get the same consumer expenditure. You don't get that same 30,000. We don't need the value, but we don't get that. Then you can understand that this value we calculated must be wrong. So there must be another approach to find this question. I mean, to find this answer. Right? There must be another approach. So what's the second approach? Anyway, I'll show you two different approaches to get that answer. But what's the easiest one, or what's the easiest one? The easiest approach is the one that I explained here. See, if you know that the price is unitary elastic, this is the easiest approach to get this answer. If you know that the price is elastic, unitary elastic, you know that the consumer expenditure must be same in whatever the given situation. So if it is initially 30,000, even after the price change, the consumer expenditure has to be 30,000. So now you think and tell me, if you multiply this 600 by whatever the value that you find inside this box, you should receive 30,000. Then how much should be that value? That value should be 50. That's the easiest way to find this value. Right? So by doing this calculation backward, you start with consumer expenditure and then you find price. Because earlier in previous situations, in previous papers, what did we do? We multiply the price and the quantity demanded to find the consumer expenditure. But this time you do the calculation backward so that you will be able to find this new price easily. එතර මේක අපිට acceptableද? when the quantity demanded has increased, the price has decreased, and at the same time, right, the consumer expenditure or maybe the producer's revenue remains the same. Now make 100% acceptable, and you will find this 50 here in this third option. See, I told you that there is another method to find this, but this method, I really don't recommend this one in the exam, but I'm just showing you that this is also a possibility I don't recommend this in the exam. This takes little time. එහෙමත් නෑ shape එක ඔය ඉලක්කම් එක ඉඳලා තියෙනවා නම් ඔයාට ආසනම් calculations කරන්න ඔයාට මේක කරන්න පුළුවන්. මෙහෙමනේ අපි දැන් ඇත්තටම paper එක යන්නේ අපි ආස නිසා කරන්න නෙමෙයි අපිට ලකුණු ගන්නනේ. අඩු වෙලාවකින් ලකුණු ඔක්කොම ටික ගන්නනේ. ඉතින් ඒ නිසා මම ආස නිසා මේක කරලා පෙන්නනවා. නමුත් ඔයාලා ආස නිසා ඒක exam එකේ apply කරන්න එපා. මෙහෙම එකක් තියෙනවා කියලා දැනගෙන ඉන්න. ඒ ඇති. හරි. එහෙනම් මොකද්ද මේකේ point එක? Point එක මෙන්න මේකයි. When you get a question like this, when you get a question similar to this, when they say that the price is unitary elastic, see that unitary elastic demand is there for that given range of price. එතන එක point එකකට නෙමෙයි, for whatever the given price range, the demand will be unitary elastic. So if you apply this arc TED equation to find this new price, you could have taken the correct answer. මම ඒක ඔයාලට කරලා පෙන්නන්නම්. දැනට මම දීලා තියෙන data ටික මෙතන ලියන්න. So what are the given data? මම දානත් කියනවා මම යාර ආසාවට මේක කරනවා. This is little lengthy compared to the previous method that I mentioned. This is little lengthy. හැබැයි ගතියට කරන්න පුළුවන්. මොකද්ද? We write PED equals delta QD over delta P multiplied by P1 plus P2 over, we write QD1 plus QD2. Right, and this is one thing, and I need this table as well. But we don't need these values now, we only need the original set of values given to us in the question, right? We have more than enough information here. So let's consider the new price to be x, and our objective is to find this x using this RPED equation. So let me write this is -1 equals delta QD is, let's say that's 500 minus 600 over delta P. See, මම මේක ගත්තේ මේ පැත්තට 500 minus 600. එහෙනම් අනිත් එක නා ගන්නත් ඕනේ එහෙමම තමයි 60 minus x. So I write 60 minus x multiplied by price 1. The first price given is 60. The second price given is x over QD1 is 500 and QD2 is 600, right? That is 600. And then -1 equals, you write here, this is -100. So be careful about the signs because this is mathematics then. This is 60 minus x, right? 60 minus x again multiplied by, you write 60 plus x over 1100. So here you have two positive values, but in this one numerator is negative, but the denominator is I don't know actually. We don't know the numerator's value. All right. Now, like in the previous case, I'm telling you, since this is a multiplication, then with an addition, subtraction, but fortunately we have this multiplication sign here, so you can get all these values into a single fraction. So how do we do that? We take -1 and then we write -100 multiplied by 60 plus x, and also we take, let me take this one first. කොයි පැත්තට ලියුවත් කමක් නැහැ. හැබැයි අපිට හුරු පැත්ත මේක නිසා අපි එහෙම ලියමු. So this is 1100 into 60 minus x. Right, 60 minus x. Now what happens? You write -1 equals, you multiply this with this, and again you multiply this with this. In the same way, you multiply this value with this value and this value with this value. ඔක තමයි කතන්දරේ. එහෙනම් දැන් මොකද වෙන්නේ? So it's -1 equals -60 and you put another two zeros. So this minus sign into this plus sign becomes minus. That will be 100 into x, and that is divided by 66,000. That is plus 66,000 minus 1100 x. Right? Now you apply cross multiplication. You multiply this entire denominator by this minus 1. එහෙනම් අපිට එන්නේ minus 1 into you write 66,000, right? 66,000 minus 1,100 into x equals you write minus 6,000 minus 100 into x. ඊළඟට what happens when you multiply all these terms from this minus 1? The sign changes. එහෙනම් the first one becomes minus 66,000. This becomes plus 1,100 into x, which is equal to minus 6,000 minus 100 into x. And what happens now? You take this minus 100x to this side and you send this minus 6,000 to this side. එහෙනම් මොකද වෙන්නේ එතකොට? We have 1,100 into x. So this minus 100x becomes plus 100 into x. We make it equal to minus 6,000 plus 66,000. So from this side you get 1,200 into x and we make it equal to 60,000. So x is equal to 60,000 divided by 1,200. See, we get the answer correctly as 50. And this is the second method. Right. So you have two methods to get this answer correctly. This is just one method. I recognize that as the consumer expenditure approach. And I recognize this approach as the ARC-PED approach. So you can just use any in the exam. But the one that I recommend, I advise you to apply this one. මොකද ඔයාලට තේරෙනවා අපිට ඕන අඩු වෙලාවකින් ලකුණු වැඩිපුර ගන්න. එහෙනම් I suggest you to apply this one, right? So this is the best approach and never apply find PED equation to find answers for questions similar to this. මොකද දීලා තියෙන price range එකේම මෙයා unitary elastic. අනිත් එක prices දෙකක් කතා කරනවා නම් ඕන ගානක just take ARC-PED. හොඳයි. එහෙනම් ඔක තමයි කතන්දරේ. So I hope that you understand everything perfectly. And look at this one. This is 10th, 11th and the 12th question. I hope that this is visible enough. Yeah, we have shape එක බලමු. Right. 12th one. Which of the following will cause the demand curve for a good to shift to the left? Okay. If the demand curve gets shifted to the left, it simply indicates that demand decreases. ඒවා ඔයාලට තේරෙනවා. ඒවා කිසිම ප්‍රශ්නයක් නෑ. Demand decreases. Demand decrease. So this is what needs to happen now, right? The demand should decrease. එහෙනම් demand එක decrease වෙන්නේ කොහොමද කියලා අපෙන් අහන්නේ? An increase in the price of the good. මම මේ දැන් කියලා ඉවරුණා විතරයි. When the price of the considered good changes, right? When the price of the considered good changes, always the quantity demanded changes, not the demand. So that this is not the answer. A decrease in the price of the good. So see once again, the price of the same good decreases and as a result, the quantity demanded will increase but not the demand. So we can't select any of these to be the answer. The third one, a decrease in the price of a complementary good. Right. Now just think about this. Right. Think about the pizza price. Pizza price. And also on the other side, we will take Coca-Cola demand. Right. Coca-Cola demand. And then මේගොල්ලෝ මොකද කියන්නේ? So these two, I hope that you understand the reason why I selected these two, because these are complementary goods. That's why I choose these two, right? And then මේගොල්ලෝ මොකද කියන්නේ? Decrease in the price of a complementary good. එහෙනම් pizza price decreases, right? Pizza price decreases. And what will happen when the pizza price decreases? Pizza quantity demanded will increase. එතකොට මොකද වෙන්නේ? ඒ pizza එක කන්න එන මනුස්සයා Coca-Cola bottle එකක් ගන්නවා. එහෙනම් මොකද වෙන්නේ? Coca-Cola demand increases. එහෙනම් අන්තිමේදී අපි බලන්නේ මේ දෙක විතරයි. අපි බලන්නේ මොකද්ද? The price of the substitute decreases and as a result the demand of the considered good increases. හැබැයි අපිට වෙන්න ඕනේ මොකද්ද? අපිට වෙන්න ඕනේ දේ තමයි the demand of the considered good should decrease. Demand should decrease. හැබැයි වෙන්නේ මොකද්ද? Demand increases here. ඒ නිසා that is also not the answer, right? This is not acceptable then. This is also not acceptable. Look at the fourth one. An increase in the price of a substitute good. මේක දැන් කතා කරන දෙයක් නෑ. I think I erased that thing නේද? Yeah, I have erased that. හැබැයි ඔයාලට මතක නම් මෙතනුනේ තෝකම තමයි. මොකද්ද? We had two substitutes here, sugar and jaggery. එතන මොකද උනේ? The price of sugar rises. එතකොට මොකද්ද උනේ? The price of the substitute good increases. එහෙනම් when the sugar price got increased, what happens to the jaggery demand? As we discussed, the jaggery demand got increased. Right? Jaggery demand got increased. හැබැයි අපිට වෙන්න ඕනේ මොකක්ද ආයෙම? අපිට වෙන්න ඕනේ demand of the considered good should decrease. එහෙනම් මේකත් නෙමෙයි answer. ඉතින් දැන් මේ කියන ඒවට answers මේ paper එකෙම හොයාගන්න පුළුවන් නම් මොකද්ද මේ paper එකේ තියෙන අමාරුව? හරි ඊළඟට look at this fifth one and expectations of future price decline. See, this is not the price of the considered good. I mean, this is not that current price of the considered good. Here they are referring to the future price, right? Future price. Right, now think about it in this way. Imagine that you are trying to buy a vehicle, right? You are trying to buy a vehicle. You are trying to buy a vehicle. එතකොට ඔයා බලනවා මේ දවස්වල වාහන වලට government එකේ tax වැඩි අරව වැඩි මේව වැඩි ඒ නිසා ඔයා කල්පනා කරනවා but in another 2 years time the price of vehicles will decrease. In another 2 years time the price of vehicles will decrease. එහෙනම් ඔයා මොකද දැන් කරන්නේ? ඔයා shape එකේ එක්ක වාහනයක් නැතුව ඉන්නවා නැත්නම් පොඩි වාහනයක් ගන්නවා මොකක් හරි එකක් කරනවා. අපි හිතමු දැන් ඔයා වාහනයක් ගන්න නැතුව ඉන්නවා කියලා until the price decreases. එහෙනම් what will happen to the vehicle demand? What will happen to the vehicle demand? Demand drops. Right? Demand drops. මම ආයෙමත් කියනවා අර කලින් question එකේ කියපු එකම මොකද්ද? If the price of the considered good, when I say the price of the considered good, I'm referring to the current price of the considered good, right? If that changes, it influences on the quantity demanded. But if another demand determinant, I mean, other than the current price of the good, if something else changes, that directly influences on the demand, the whole demand. එහෙනම් දැන් මේ example එකේ when you expect the future price to decrease, that is another determinant, not the price of the considered good. I mean, not the current price of the considered good. So you expect that to reduce in the future. And so then make a demand කරන එක නවත්තලා ඔයා බලාගෙන ඉන්නවා මොකක් වෙනකන්ද? ඔයා බලන් ඉන්නවා future price එක අඩු වෙනකන්. එහෙනම් what will happen to the current demand as a result, since you are waiting until the price to reduce, the current demand will decrease. And that's what we were looking for. So the answer for this question 12 is the fifth one. Right. The 13th question. With a downward sloping market demand curve and an upward sloping market supply curve for a product, a decrease in input price will. Very easy. We don't need to discuss this, but look at this. We have the quantity axis, we have the price axis, we have a downward sloping demand curve and an upward sloping supply curve, right? An upward sloping supply curve, right? Now what happens here in this market? you experience a decrease in input price. Decrease in input price means decrease in cost of inputs. And when the cost of inputs, see, this is a determinant of supply, right? When the cost of inputs decreases, what happens to the supply? Supply increases, not the quantity supplied, right? අර කලින් කතාවම තමයි. දැන් මෙතනදී අපි කල්පනා කරනෝනේ, if the price of the considered good changes, if the current price of the considered good changes, then the quantity supplied changes. හැබැයි මෙතනදී මොකද වෙන්නේ? According to this question, another determinant of supply, I mean a determinant other than the current price of supply changes. දැන් මොකක්ද A කියන determinant එක? Cost of inputs. එතකොට when cost of inputs get decreased, what happens to the supply? Supply should increase. And this has to be the first supply curve, and this is the second supply curve. So based on the initial demand and supply curves, this is the market price, this is the market quantity, and based on the new demand and supply curves, you recognize this to be the market demand and this to be the market supply. You know what will happen? The market price drops, whereas the market quantity increases. මොකද තමයි වෙන්නේ? එහෙනම් අපි බලමු. Increase in equilibrium price and quantity. No, only the price, sorry, there's a reduction, right? Only the quantity increases, but the price decreases. So this is not the answer. Decrease equilibrium price and quantity. No, only the price decreases, quantity increases. Shift the supply curve to the left. No, the supply curve gets shifted to the right side. So that is also wrong. Decrease equilibrium price, yes, true. Increase equilibrium quantity, that is also true. And an answer for this question 13 is this fourth one. So no point of reading the other one. Right. Now look at this question 14. Right, this is question 14. Now read this. Small countries' domestic market demand curve and supply curve for sugar. Make a sugar වලට ආස කෙනෙක් මේ paper එක හදලා තියෙන්නේ. So sugar are respectively presented, let's say, in the following equations. All right. එතකොට මොකද වෙන්නේ if I just draw the demand curve and the supply curve? Let's say this is the demand curve and here you get the supply curve. Based on the demand curve, we can just put the values. So this has to be then 320, and here you should get this value 320 divided by 3. So wait, I'll find that 320 divided by 3 is 106.6. So it 106.6 here. And then if I just connect this to this axis, you get minus 80 here. And at this point, you will have 80 over 2, which is 40. You get 40 here. And then based on this demand and supply, right, let me write. Yeah. So based on this demand and supply, yeah, we get the equilibrium price to be 80, and then 80 into 2, 160. Yeah, we get equilibrium price and the equilibrium quantity both to be 80. කොහොම තමයි දැන් ගානේ data ටික අපිට දීලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒක දීලා අපි මොකක්ද අහන්නේ? අපි මේක shape එකේ කියවමු. Assume, right? Assume that the sugar market is open to international trade and the world market price for sugar is 60 per, let's say, kilogram. Let's say so, 60 per kilogram. what's the quantity of sugar that are domestically supplied when the country is open to international trade? So I I think that you remember the previous paper we discussed, that is 2015 A level paper. In this 2015, no, 2014, right? In this 2014 paper අපිට මේක දුන්නා. ඒකම තමයි දැන් මේ තියෙන්නේ. එහෙනම් මොකද්ද? This is the world supply curve, right? This is the world supply curve of the world. එතකොට මොකද වෙන්නේ? The world market price for sugar is given to us as 60. එහෙනම් අපිට මතකයි අපි 2014 එකෙත් කතා කළා, when the sugar get imported to the country, to this economy, the sugar price get reduced to 60. එතකොට අපෙන් අහන්නේ මොකද්ද? ඔය ටික දීලා what is the quantity of sugar that are domestically supplied when the country is open to international trade? උත්තර කියන දෙයක් නෑ. ඕකේ සරලව අහන්නේ how much is the quantity supplied when the price is 60? ඉතින් ඕක ඔයා කරන්නේ කොහොමද? You get the local supply curve which is minus 80 plus 2 times P, and you replace this price with the world market price, and that will be minus 80 plus 2 times, let's say 60. You get minus 80 plus 120, and that's 40 kilos, right? 40 kilos. එහෙනම් මෙතන එන වැලියු එක 40. ඕක තමයි අපෙන් ගානේ අහලා තියෙන්නේ. එහෙනම් හරි සරල එකක්. සරල වුණාට එහෙම එකක් නෑ. Sorry. Yes, the first one is the answer. Okay, then 15th question. It says, suppose, I believe so, right? Suppose the demand for petrol is very inelastic. So let me write, demand is inelastic. Supply is again elastic. Supply is elastic, and excise tax on petrol will be borne. An excise tax on petrol will be borne more heavily by buyers, more heavily by sellers. හරි, අපිට ඕක ඉතුරු ටික ඇත්තටම ඕනෙත් නෑ. මේක මහා ලේසි එකක්. මම හැමතිස්සෙම කියන කතාවක් මේක. inelastic, වැඩිපුර inelastic මොකක්ද? මොන පාටි එකද? ටැක්ස් එකක් ඉම්පෝස් කළොත් ඒ පාටි එකට තමයි ටැක්ස් එකකින් මැජොරිටි එක bear up කරන්න වෙන්නේ. අනිත් පැත්තෙන් සබ්සිඩි එකක් දුන්නොත් inelastic කවුද? එයාට තමයි සබ්සිඩි එකේ majority of the benefit එක pass වෙන්නේ. ඉතින් ඒ නිසා මේක හරිම සරල එකක්. If demand is inelastic, definitely the consumers will borne majority of the tax. Consumers will borne majority of the tax. Consumers ලා කියලා කියන buyers ලා. එහෙනම් borne heavily by buyers කියන answer එක 100% true. We don't need to even look at the other answers. එච්චරක් simple. එතන දැන් more heavily by sellers නම් එහෙනම් supply has to be inelastic compared to the demand. එතකොට මේක හරියන්න තිබ්බා. ඊළඟට මෙතන මම හිතන්නේ කියන්නේ equally by buyers and sellers equally මේක divide වෙනවා, or in every single situation if PED becomes equal to PES මොන වෙලාවෙදිද? ඒ වෙලාවේ මේ දෙන්න equally මේක bear up කරනවා. ඒතර මම එකෙන් කියන්නේ මේ දෙන්න හැමතිස්සෙම 1 වෙන්න ඕනේ කියලා. නිකන් හිතන්නකෝ PED is 2 කියලා, PED is minus 2 and PES is plus 2. දෙන්න equal, then they will equally bear up the tax, or they will equally enjoy the subsidy if it's a subsidy. ඉතින් ඒ නිසා එහෙම වෙන්න පුළුවන්. හරි, හැබැයි මේ වෙලාවේ එහෙම වෙන්නේ නැහැ. Fourth one, entirely by taxpayers. මේක entirely මොකක්ද? entirely by taxpayers නෙමෙයි මේ. entirely by buyers කියලා තිබුණා කියලා හිතන්නකෝ. entirely by buyers කියලා තිබුණොත් එහෙම that means demand is perfectly inelastic කියන එක. නමුත් මේ දීලා තියෙන එකට එහෙම තේරුමක් නැහැ entirely by taxpayers කියලා. මෙතන neither buyers nor sellers එහෙම වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඉතින් tax එකක් හරි subsidy එකක් හරි දුන්නොත් ඒක කාටම හරි මේ දෙන්න එකිනෙක අනිවාර්යයෙන් මේක bear up කරනවා. Right. So I hope that discussion is enough for this question 15. Right, look at this question 16 now. It says the graph shows the demand and supply curves in a competitive market for an agricultural commodity. By giving all these, the government wants to promote the production of this commodity and decides to pay producers a subsidy of 2 rupees per unit. Okay, it's a unit subsidy of rupees 2. The consumer surplus after the subsidy is, okay, very easy. So we just need to calculate the consumer surplus after subsidy. So how do we do that? We all know when a tax is imposed, the supply curve gets shifted to the left side. And on the other hand, when a subsidy is offered, the supply curve is shifted to the right side by the amount of that unit subsidy. And in this case, the subsidy is rupees 2. එහෙනම් මේක දුන්නම අපි දැන් ඉන්නේ මෙතන the starting point of the supply curve is here. මේක කොච්චරකින් rightward shift එකක් වෙනවද? 2 වලින් rightward shift එකක් වෙනවා. එහෙනම් දැන් ඔයා මේක මෙන්න මෙහෙම අරගත්තා. මෙන්න මෙහෙම ඇඳා. Right? So that's the new supply curve. So the new supply curve will look like this. ඔයාගේ paper එකේම කරගත්තා නම් හරි. So this is the supply curve 1 and this is a supply curve 2. And අහන්නේ මොකද්ද? The consumer surplus after the subsidy. See, I always tell you this. මොකද්ද? If it's the consumer surplus, that is the region below the demand curve, above the market price. See, after the subsidy, the market equilibrium, නැත්නම් market price is 3. එහෙනම් below this demand curve, but above the market price, up to the quantity traded in that market. Which region satisfies all these 3 conditions? It has to be the region below the demand curve, again below this demand curve, above the market price, up to the quantity traded in the market. This region satisfies all the 3 conditions. Right? This region satisfies all the 3 conditions. ඊට පස්සේ එහෙනම් ඔයා මොකද කරන්න ඕනේ? You just need to find the area, the shaded area. එතකොට ඔයාලට තේරෙනවා the shaded area is a triangle. එතකොට මේ triangle එකේ area එක හොයන්න ඔයා A level economics වල නෙමෙයි ඉගෙන ගත්තේ. You learn that in O level mathematics. එහෙනම් how do we find the area of this triangle, this shaded region? අපි ගන්නවා half into height into width. Half into height into width. So half into height is the difference between 6 and 3. So you write that's the difference between 6 and 3 and you multiply that by the width. Width is the difference between 60 and 0, which is anyway 60. Right? So it's half into 3 into 60. 60 divided by 2 will be 30 into 3 will be 90. So answer is 90. So this is the answer, 90. Very easy. Right, 17th question. A price ceiling set below the market equilibrium price. Anyway, the effective price ceiling will be set below the equilibrium price. So this is the supply curve, this is the demand curve, and this is the equilibrium price, and this is the equilibrium quantity. Now the government is going to impose this maximum price. So this is the price ceiling. This is the maximum price. Right? Maximum price. දැන් අහන්නේ මොකද්ද? Price ceiling set below the market equilibrium price will result in an excess supply. Okay. See, soon after imposing this maximum price, what happens to the quantity demanded? See, a maximum price is lower than the equilibrium price so that it motivates the buyers. When the price decreases, the quantity demanded increases But when the price decreases, it discourages the suppliers so that the quantity supplied will reduce, right? Quantity demanded will be increased, but the quantity supplied will be reduced. එහෙනම් මොකද වෙන්නේ? මෙන්න මෙච්චර amount එකකින්. එහෙම නැත්නම් මෙන්න මෙච්චර amount එකකින්. කෝක ගතත් එකයි. මේ amount එකෙන් we see an excess demand in the market. Demand exceeds the supply so that we have an excess demand, not an excess supply. See that now? The second one is the answer there. So no point of going through the other options. This is easy. Right. Look at this 18th question. Right. In the 18th question, it says, in the production process, a short run is a period of time in which, all right, okay. So this is not a calendar year. මේ අවුරුද්දකට අච්චරයි මෙච්චරයි එහෙම මාස මෙච්චරයි, that's not the short run. Short run is a period where the business firm, the production firm, is operating with at least one fixed factor of input, right? The production firm operates with at least one fixed factor of input. අන්නේ time period අපි අඳුර ගන්නවා short run කියලා. එහෙනම් in the short run we have two different types of inputs in a production firm. So on one side we have fixed inputs, and on the other side we have variable inputs. ඔය දෙකම තියෙන period එක තමයි අපි කියන්නේ මොකක්ද කියලාද? That's a short run. හරි. එහෙනම් අපි දැන් කියලා බලමු. The firm is not able to hire more workers. No. Workers belong to variable inputs, and the firm is capable of increasing the labor inputs. එනිසා ඒකේ ප්‍රශ්නයක් නෑ. This is wrong. Second one, the amount of output produced is fixed. ඔයාලට නිකන් curve එකක් හරි මතක නම් ඔයාලට තේරෙනවා නෑ, in the short run also the output varies. It varies according to the law of diminishing marginal returns. ඒ නිසා output is fixed කියන එක මාරම කිසිම මේ තේරුමක් නැති option එකක් දීලා තියෙනවා. Third one, there is a shortage of most inputs. එහෙම එකක් නෑ. There's no shortage එකක් තියෙනවා කියලා නෙමෙයි අපි කියන්නේ. Some inputs remain fixed. So we are not in a position to change some of the inputs. නැතු shortage එකක් තියෙනවා කියන කතාවක් එකක් නෑ එහෙම. All inputs are fixed. No, not all. Some inputs are fixed. So that's wrong then. The quantities of some inputs are fixed and others can be varied. Yes. Fixed inputs remain constant, but the variable inputs can change. So answer is the fifth one there. Right. 19th. This says the vertical distance between the total cost and the total variable cost curves is okay. So simply they are asking us to recognize the meaning of this vertical distance between TC and TVC. මම මේකට ඔයාලට note එක පෙන්නන්නම්. එතකොට වැඩි ඉවර වෙනවා. So look at this note. Right. So look at this one. Here we have TC, and then we get TVC. Variable cost කියලා කියන්නේ total variable cost කියන එක, TC කියලා කියන්නේ anyway total cost කියන එක. එතකොට ඒගොල්ලෝ අහන්නේ the vertical distance between TC and TVC. එතකොට ඒ කියන්නේ මෙතන ඉඳලා මෙතනට තියෙන gap එක. එතන ඉඳලා එතන තියෙන gap එක තමයි හැමතිස්සෙම මොකද්ද? මේ gap එක, that is the total fixed cost. එතකොට මේ gap එක ඕන තරක සමානයි. දැන් මම පෙන්නන්නේ ඔයාට මෙහෙම මම වෙන පෑනක් ගන්න. Look at this. See, this is this gap නේ. ඔය gap එකයි මෙතන තියෙන gap එකයි නැත්තම් මෙතන තියෙන gap එකයි එහෙම නැත්තම් මෙතන තියෙන ඔය vertical gap එකයි මෙතන තියෙන ඔය ඕන gap එකක් equal. මෙතනයි මෙතන ඕන එකක් equal. කාටද equal වෙන්නේ? Total fixed cost කියන එක. Right? Total fixed cost කියන එක. එහෙනම් ඔක තමයි answer එක. So come back to this. The vertical distance between TC and TVC, curve is TFC equal to total fixed cost. When options balala වැඩක් නෑ මේ වගේ ප්‍රශ්නවල. Very straightforward. Right. 20th. Given the cost and demand schedules of a competitive firm depicted in the diagram below, if the firm increased output from Q1 to Q2, it would. All right. So this is the given diagram. So let's look at the diagram. So you have the MC curve here and the demand curve here. So if it's a firm operating in a competitive market, එකෙන් අදහස් කරනවා ඇත්තේ මේ perfect competitive market structure එකේ තමයි මේක තියෙන්නේ. එහෙනම් අපි දන්නවා ඊටු ටිකත් මොකද්ද? Demand is equal to the price and also price is equal to the average revenue and marginal revenue. කලින් papers වල අපි මේවා calculate කරලා මම පෙන්නලා තියෙන්නේ that all these are equal කියලා. හරි. එහෙමනම් ඊට පස්සේ මම අහනවා they are going to increase the output from Q1 to Q2. So which means they are operating right now, they are operating at this point. So what happens at this point? What happens? The MC is equal to MR. The MC, this is MC ne? That MC, this MC is equal to this MR. MC is equal to MR. And this is the point at which the firm's profit get maximized. So let me write profit is maximized here. Profit is maximized here. If the profit get maximized at this point, ඒගොල්ලෝ ඒ quantity level එකේ ඉඳලා තව quantity එක වැඩි කළොත් or ඒගොල්ලෝ quantity එක තව අඩු කළොත්, either way it will reduce the profit earned by the firm. Okay, the profit is maximized at this point. එතන මේ point එකෙන් මේ පැත්තේ or on the other side the profit will be reduced. ඕක තමයි වෙන්නේ. මොකද කියන්නේ earn a normal profit? No. Experience an increase in profit? No, profit will decrease. Experience a decline in profit? Yes, that's the answer. Right. එතර කලින් papers වල මේ point එක ගැන questions තිබුණා. එතර point එක දීලා දැන් මොකද වෙන්නේ කියලා මේ paper එකේ අහනවා. හරි ලේසි දේවල්. Right, look at this question 21. Which of the following is not a characteristic of monopolistically competitive market? Okay, monopolistic competition කියන්නේ. And what are the examples for businesses that are operating in monopolistic competition? අපි මේ ඉන්න එකත් ඒකම තමයි tuition industry. Right? So tuition industry. ඊට පස්සේ we have hotels, we have saloons. ඔය වගේ මොනවා හරි හිතාගෙන බලන්න මේ දීලා තියෙන characteristics මේවායේ තියෙනවද නැද්ද? නැත්නම් ඒක තමයි answer. Right. So which one of the following is not a characteristic? Relatively easy market entry? Yes, it's relatively easy. ඕන කෙනෙකුට අවිල්ලා කරන්න පුළුවන්. Differentiated product. So මම උගන්නන එකයි වෙන කෙනෙකු උගන්නන එකයි 100% identical වෙන්නේ නැහැ. අපි දෙන්නම දෙන්නේ එකම theory එක, but the approach is different. Right, the third one, substantial product advertising. ඒක ඔයාලට තින් මම අමුතුන් කියන දේ නැහැ. In tuition industry advertising is very high. සිද්ධිය තේරෙනවනේ. Fourth one, large number of both buyers and sellers. Yes, that's true. Firm face perfectly elastic demand curves. No, then සිද්ධිය මේකනේ අර කලින් එකෙත් අපි කතා කළානේ. If this is the demand curve, if this is the shape of the demand curve, this must be a firm operating in the perfect competition. Why? Because in the perfect competition, there are three main characteristics. They are producing the identical products, and we have many buyers and sellers, Third one, we have perfect information. We get perfect information. Due to these three, the firm becomes a price taker. Firm becomes a price taker. And when the firm becomes a price taker, their demand curve will look like this. The demand curve faced by one firm in the industry will look like this. It will be perfectly elastic demand curve. Habai, as we discussed here, in the monopolistic competition, we have differentiated products so that the firm is capable of changing different prices. In this case, the firm faces, in a monopolistic competition market, the firm faces a downward sloping typical demand curve. Right. And our answer is the fifth one because this is not a characteristic of a monopolistic competition. Right. Look at this question 22. In the circular flow of income diagram, which one of the following flows directly from, which one of the following flows directly from the government? It flows from the government, maybe to the households, maybe to the business firms. Right? So the flow should start from the government side. The government flow taxes නේ taxes කියලා කියන්නේ government එකේ ඉඳලා යන flow එකක් නෙමෙයි වෙන කොහේ හරි ඉඳලා government එකට එන flow එකක්. So it flows to the government, not from the government. So that's why we can't take this. Exports not related to the government, savings again not related to the government. See, transfer payments flows from the government to the households. It flows from the government to the business firms. And this is the flow that starts that flows from the government. එතකොට investment කියලා කියන එක government එකකින් වෙන්නත් පුළුවන් ඒක private sector එකකින් වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. එතකොට that is not directly related to the government. මොකද economy එකක government කියලා එකක් නැති වුණත් we have investments. ඒ නිසා මේක කවදාවත් answer එකක් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. Right. So 22 fourth is the answer. 23 look at this one. In the contractionary phase of the business cycle. Okay, so this is the business cycle. We have this. In the contractionary phase means this phase. Right. So in the contractionary phase of the business cycle, investment is rising and the output is fake. Okay. කතන්දර මෙච්චරයි තියෙන්නේ. මේක වෙන්නේ මෙහෙමයි. මුලින්ම වෙන්නේ මොකද්ද? Aggregate demand decreases and as a result the firms will reduce their production. ඒ නිසා මම ලියනවා production reduces. When production reduces, employment reduces. If not, if you look at from the other side, unemployment increases. ඊට පස්සේ income falls. ඔය ටික තමයි වෙන්නේ during this phase. එහෙනම් අපි answer එකට ඔය මොනවා හරි එකක් තමයි වෙන්න ඕනේ. Unemployment is rising. Yes, unemployment is rising. If not, employment is decreasing. dekama hari. And output is falling. Yeah, production is falling. And an answer for this one is the second one. Anitya kiyola therumak ne. 24. At present, the largest component of gross domestic capital formation in Sri Lanka. Okay, so I'm not going to discuss these type of questions because they are not anymore valid to your A-level year. ඒ නිසා මේකේ answer එක බලා ගන්න ඕන නම් marking schemes තියෙනවනේ. ඒ නිසා no need to discuss. 25th one. To calculate GDP from the expenditure side, one must add together. අතර මේක හරි ලේසි නේද? So we have GDP under expenditure approach. සරලව මොකද equation C plus I plus G plus NX. Right? ඔක තමයි equation එක. එහෙනම් අපි බලමු. One must add together wages, profit, government purchases and net exports. මේ දෙක නම් shape එකේ තියෙනවා. නමුත් මෙහෙම scene එකක් මේකේ නැහැ. ඒතකොට මේ දෙක තියෙන income approach එකේ. ඒතර wages, rent ආයමත් income approach, interest income approach, profit income. So consumption, investment, government purchases, exports. Exports නම් හරි හැබැයි ඇත්තටම equation එක net exports. මොකද exports විතරක් ගන්නවා නම් වෙනමම exports ටික add කරන්න ඕනේ. Then imports subtract කරන්න ඕනේ. So that's wrong then. ඒ කියන්නේ මේක ගන්න බෑ. Consumption, investment, government purchases and net exports identical. අපි ලියපෙකට identical. So this is the answer, right? අනිත් එක තුර ඒක නෙමෙයිනේ government purchases, taxes, interest අපි මේ දෙක ගන්න. මේ දෙක නම් ගන්නවා. But the other two we don't take. Answer for this question 25 is a fourth one.